I think part of my attitude about how this conversation works, what we're really trying to do when we talk to each other, um, trying to have some understanding, and the results are secondary. I mean, I'm interested in watching results, but it's like running a particle accelerator. You might predict what the results are, but it's still more interesting just to see what the results actually are. Yes, you want them to be as you predicted. But basically, I'm very autodidactic, which means self-taught in things. Like, even though I took a bunch of physics and math coursework, I'd already been studying math and physics on my own, and I learned programming. I took logic in school, and I applied that to my understanding of programming and design and logical design. But this was all very self-directed. I saw that there could be a fusion between this interest and that interest in this class and that class. So when I come and have this discussion, which I've done throughout that whole experience, I started having online discussion at 13, I think. So over 30 years ago. But it's necessarily a self-taught thing. I was bound, my bias is to look at what we're doing as a self-education, and I just find it funny. So many people think that they are educators. That's why they're here, because they're natural-born educators, and they're trying to educate others. I think you can inform others, but in an autodidactic model where you could trust people to learn things on their own, it's enough to show them experiments and the results of experiments, but they don't have to leave right then believing it. You expect them to go, huh, that's interesting, I'll have to think about that more, because that's the autodidactic creed. Wow, this has showed me I need to adjust just some of my understanding of a particular thing. So that's how I interpret this public dialogue. And people become what we call convinced, but I just don't see the process as one of convincing or of educating. I was a good student. I learned the teacher's personality, and I managed to be a good student, but there were certain things that I didn't compromise on. Like, I really hated learning things by rote, and I'm very bad at that stuff. You just have to memorize a list of 50 things. Now, if the 50 things can be inferred from a simple set of 20 things, like all these applications of Newton's laws can be applied from F equals ma, and yet they're very separate applications. Celestial mechanics, projectile mechanics, we know why they're related, but they're pretty, from a human point of view, different domains. So you might have 50 details that are somewhat separate because they relate to the context that the idea is being applied in. But you can uh, infer these 50 things from the set of a few abstract or one abstract law. I can memorize those then. And as mnemonics, when I forget one of them, I remember a hint of the derivation. I rederive it. And I will actually memorize those and not have to rederive them. Somehow, that whole triangulated system works best for me, and I think maybe this is an autodidactic approach. Maybe a lot of you, you seem well educated, the people I'm talking to, literate. Uh, and maybe that's not an experience of the learning as I understand it. Maybe a lot of you, had teachers telling you things, convincing you by giving you negative grades and other game theory manipulations. And so now here you are trying to interpret what you do here, and it seems like it must have something to do with that same process of being an instructor. But, those that can't do teach, they say, and it's not the biggest pride in the world to have finished an idea so well that all you need to do is blurt it on to other people, get other people to copy it. Because then you've stopped, and progress never stops. So I prefer a group of adventurers off in the fore of the frontier discussing what they're encountering. That's how I interpret it. It won't stop.